Today we are working on our 2018 Hyundai Ioniq. The splash guard underneath the front end of the car, the front of it kind of came unclipped, and then obviously had hit some things, started to bend and break. So I temporarily pushed it back up inside and held it in place, but I ordered a new one and now we got to put it in. So we're going to get that done today because we have a long drive to Florida in a couple of weeks and it needs to get done before we leave. So the first thing you want to do obviously is jack your car up if you don't have a lift and get your jack stands under there for safety. You do not want to work on a car just off of the jack. You want to get some jack stands or block it up for safety because it would probably hurt if this car fell on top of me. And if you're not comfortable working on a vehicle, you should probably have a professional do it. If you're not sure of what you're doing, you should probably have a professional do it. This is a very simple job. I don't do everything on vehicles because I'm not even comfortable working on some of the things, but the things I am comfortable doing, I do. This is the first time I've done a splash guard on a vehicle. This is, like I said, it's 2018, so it's newer. It has not needed any work other than the routine maintenance, oil changes, things like that. I think it needed brakes once. But other than that, this is the first thing I'm actually working on myself on this vehicle. But if you're not comfortable, use a professional. So here's the front end damage. You can see all this is worn. And I don't know at what point it came unclipped, but there's little holes here. All these clips were missing across the front. And then this corner actually started folding down, probably from wind and snapping. It's all just like hard cardboard. I don't know, it's cheap. Everything's cheap nowadays, so nothing lasts, but this was hanging down pretty good. There was actually another piece attached to it that I cut off that was actually dragging on the ground. So that's how we started hearing this noise. And so I cut some of it off, pushed this back up inside, and this tape held. I duct taped a little bit on this end because every clip across the front was missing. So this is under the front and left side tire, but you can see these holes here where I pulled some of these clips out. This is all that holds that on, a little plastic clip. They're not screws, bolts, nothing. There are some bolts holding this on, which I'll show you in a minute, but this is all that's holding along the side and the whole front edge, and that's what came out. Or I don't know, maybe when one of the shops was working on it, they didn't put them all back in, and that's why it came loose. I will never know. So I am putting the new splash guard on, and I do have new clips for anyone that is missing, because sometimes you can reuse these, but if they're worn or sometimes they break when you try to take them out, I do replace a lot of them. And you can get these at any auto place. They have multiple sizes, so you just want to take one with you and get the right size that you need for your job. Or you can get a multi-size pack and just have them on hand like I do. And on the back side of the splash guard, there is bolts here. So there are several bolts across this piece. So it's not only held on by plastic clips, but it seems to be across the front. This is close to the front here. So there is a bolt here. So it's really just this very front attached to the bumper is what came loose and started causing a problem. And I do make a tool for removing these, but I just use a screwdriver. You just pop that loose, which then makes it small enough to fall out of that hole. And then when you push this in, it spreads these out and holds it up inside tight. So it's kind of like a wall anchor. You know, if you use drywall anchors, it's kind of that same idea. But you just pop that little head of the centerpiece loose, and then these can smush in and pull out, and that's all you got to do to remove them. So here's an example of how they can break. I just pried on the center of it and the head snapped off, so I just pushed the center up inside to get it to come free of these little ends, and then I went to pry on this whole thing to come out, and it just kind of crumbled. But there was a lot of road dirt and grime around it, so that's why it wasn't coming free easily. But this one obviously we will be replacing. And these bolts that hold it on in certain spots is a 10mm, which is not uncommon for Asian vehicles. It is very common. So I have a 2010 Honda Odyssey, and a lot of bolts are also 10mm. And there is in the auto world, there are some memes that float around occasionally joking about the infamous missing 10mm socket. And pro tip, you want to work, if you're laying on your car from front to back, like I'm laying underneath the front end from the front bumper, you want to remove this from the back side first, moving forward, because if you start taking apart the front first, it's going to sag and lay on top of you as you're trying to work your way back to these bolts. So start in the back end and work your way forward, so when this starts sagging, it's not laying on you and getting in your way. All right, got the old one out. It looks like, yeah, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, but this bolt actually pulled through, so that's still under the car in the frame, and I got to take that one out. But this was a mangled corner, and all this was folding down and dragging on the ground at one point. And then there's a new one. All right, here's a look underneath with that cover off, and it is immaculate. It is clean, so it serves its purpose. It covers all of this, the bottom end of your engine, transmission. It even covers the oil filter, and there's a little cap. I'll show that when I put the new one on, but there's a little access door you take off of that cover to access this, as well as a few other spots here. There's a little access hole, but that entire splash guard covers all of this and keeps it all spotless and clean. It protects the radiator, so everything from bumper cover back to the main frame there past the engine. So it definitely is important to maintain that. And here's some of the bolt holes here. This is just a support bracket that those 4 across the front of that splash guard bolts into, and then there's various other points in the metal frames back there where the bolts go in, and then it's just plastic clips clipping to this and the bumper guard, the bumper cover. So what I'm doing is just hand tightening all these bolts in place to hold it in place, so I can get my wrench and tighten everything. With this very back bracket, there's actually a plastic piece that's grommeted to this splash guard, and it slides up over top of the hole that bolt threads through, so that kind of holds the back in place while you work on the front end and hold this in place and put in some bolts. So I already hand tightened some bolts here across the front to hold it up, so it's staying in place now. Now I'm just gonna finish getting the bolts in hand tight, and then go back around with the wrench and tighten them all back up. So I have a little kit of different size plastic clips from working on my Honda Odyssey. And what I'm finding is these used clips, I'm putting some back in, but they're very loose. So they're obviously worn or the wrong size from when a shop worked on the car. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't had much work done on this car, so I don't think they should have had to remove this for anything, because the oil change, you have these accesses right here for the drain plug down there and the filter here. Luckily I have these, and I do have the right size, so I'm putting new ones across the front here because they're going in much tighter and they're going to keep it in place much better. So here's what I'm doing with one of the new clips. You take one of these plastic pieces without the center insert, and you just push it up in through all the layers of plastic, and then you take the insert, which spreads out the pieces, and you just push it in and make sure it's secure. So, and that's way tighter than some of these used ones I was gonna reuse. So I'll put new ones in along both sides and across the front. And that's the last one. So all the bolts are tightened up and the clips are in, and I think the job is done. Looks good. All right, that's gonna wrap up this little job. The part for this was 250 bucks. So it wasn't cheap just for this little piece of cardboard here but it serves its purpose. So from the dealership, I was shopping around because I'm cheap, and from dealerships they were selling for like 340, but I did find a Hyundai OEM parts dealer, I forget what state it shipped out of, but they had it on sale for 250. It was like 247 or something, and then shipping, I forget how much that cost, but it was under 300 bucks. And my local dealership, Hyundai parts dealer, was about 340. So Saved a little bit of money shopping around, but an auto mechanic probably could have done this in half the time because they have a lift and they have faster tools, more efficient tools. I'm just using hand tools, but it saves some money because I can do it myself, and I had the time to do it on a Saturday morning. So like I say, time is everything, money is a tool, and we can't afford to waste either one. Until next time, last tag.